Hi.
Hi.
Ring ring.
Ring, ring, ring to you.
I'm
Hi,
gonna have to get
Emily.
hi Robert. I'm gonna have to get a prop phone in here so I can talk on it. Hello, how are you today?
I'm really, really, really good. It's
Thank you.
freezing in Memphis.
I know. Thank you for taking my call.
Uh-huh.
It's cold there in
Mm-hmm.
Memphis and
Mm-hmm.
it's cold here in Nashville. And when I say cold, I mean in the 40s and it's also
Mm-hmm.
raining. But we're undaunted because we're gonna hop on a jumbo jet airplane and we're going to California.
I am so down with that.
We're going to be California dreaming. And
Yeah.
we're going to be on the lipstick pickup heat map because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot going on in California and it's rainy and cold here, so we want to go to the Sunshine State. And it's a place that we love. I love LA. You love
I love
LA.
L.A.
And you lived there for nearly a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't actually, you've lived so many places that we haven't actually talked about that too much. So before we get into some lipstick pickup arena, I want you to tell me a little bit about you moving to LA with the band The Swing Madisons.
Okay. Well, the Swingin' Madisons was okay. After being the Cramps roadie for from 76 to 1980 in New York, I joined a band had that was an offshoot of a band called the Mumps, which was fronted by Lance Loud. And Lance was the poster child and basically the star of the very first reality show that came out of American television. It was called An American Family. It was in the early 70s, early to mid 70s. And
Public television, right? Wasn't this on?
public
Yeah.
television, yes.
Okay.
I think it was on PBS or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very, very popular show. It aired every week, and people couldn't wait to see what this family was up to. And it
Yeah.
literally was a reality show. There was these two people that lived with the family and just followed them around with cameras, totally unscripted. It was just their lives. And it was in the beautiful small town city of Santa Barbara, just above Los Angeles.
Affluent, right? Is
Very, yes. And Lance
yeah.
ended up moving to New York and starting a band called the Mumps, and was very beloved by the whole Warhol crowd and CBGB's, Max's Kansas City. They were darlings of early New York punk scene, and the Swingin' Madisons came out of that, and that's when I joined the band in, I think, 1980. And it
Wow.
was really, really fun. We played CBGBs all the time. We were pretty much the house band there for a long time. And in fact, there's a poster right over my shoulder of a CBGB's show. And I
Oh,
think in maybe 78, something
it's
like that.
groovy. And
No,
you
80,
did
80, 80 or 81.
you
81.
you had something to do with the making of that poster, right? You did
Yeah,
you?
I
Yeah.
printed it.
Oh, okay,
I
great.
My day job was as a printer. And
Awesome.
that's how I got to print all of the original Cramps posters and their first two 45 picture sleeves.
Wow.
And but I digress. So by 1984, New York was kind of drying up, and there just wasn't as much happening in New York as in LA. So we're like, let's just move to LA and have fun. And we had wonderful friends there, and so the band just packed up and rented a car and just drove across the country and ended up in LA.
Far out.
We got an apartment in the middle of Hollywood, and then I realized I had to learn how to drive. So a
Oops.
girlfriend of mine was babysitting for Karen Black, the actress, and Karen Black had these big land yacht cars from the 60s. And she's like, Robert, all you have to do is just drive and go in a straight line. And so we got really, really drunk and we were careening down Hollywood Boulevard and sideswiping tour buses, and it was entertaining for all parties involved. Some kind of entertainment. But I learned how to drive in LA, and that was it. And the band stayed together for a few more years, and
So you just had
that was
that
it.
one EP,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so you were making your I mean you guys were playing live in LA or
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
The Lingerie, Wong's West, Madame Wong's Chinatown, the Lhasa Club, a lot of stuff at the Lingerie.
That's
But where else was there? There was the Mask, the other Mask. There was. Then we'd go up to San Francisco and play at the Mabuhay Gardens, and go up to just. I loved playing in San Francisco. Oh, and then there was a Madame Wong's up there, I think, too.
for our listeners, I want to tell you that I didn't know who tell you and everyone else that I did not know who the Swinging Madisons were until I met you. And I did.
Almost no one does. We were a blip on the history of New York rock and roll.
Well, it was a very cool blip because
Yeah, it was a really cool blip.
I spent some time on YouTube yesterday evening watching the performances of you guys on stage at CBGB's, and with an audio track that wasn't exactly matched up to it, and it was a feast for the eyes. I mean, first of all, I'm going to need to know your brand of hairspray and how you.
Okay.
Was that Aquanet?
No, no, no. It was there. Sometimes it was Aquanet Extra Super Hold,
Oh,
but there was this other really amazing stuff called Aerolac, which was pure lacquer hairspray. It was basically crazy glue in a can. And then there was a bergamot called Murray's bergamot, it was like paraffin wax that you would just like put in your hair, and then sculpt it with Aerolac pure lacquer hairspray.
it looks amazing from what I could see on YouTube, and you look
It was a
amazing.
lot of fun.
It looks like full performance to me, and sort of the punk tinged power pop
Oh yeah.
performance, and it rocked.
It
And
was very, very, very irreverent.
I love it. I love it. I could tell by looking at the crowd they were having a blast, and it's kind of signature Robert Miche too, because you're a very animated guitar player.
Well, I thought you were just going to say I'm extremely irreverent.
You're all of the above. But I mean, you're animated now. I've seen you perform. You're an animated guitar player. Not everybody stands there like John Entwistle.
Well,
He's not a guitar player, but you know what I mean.
you can't just call it in.
Well, you guys were full performance. And
Yeah. Yeah.
when I was watching the video last night, and I told you, I said, wow, this is amazing. And you said, I still have that Les Paul. And
It's
so
right behind me.
I want to talk about it because we try to stick with the Masonite and the lipstick pickups in the world of Dan Electro and all that stuff. But you've been teaching me a lot about the difference between a very venerable classic guitar like a Les Paul and how it's different than a Dan Electro and they each have their purpose. And I saw you playing that in the video last night, which is like over 40 years ago, and there it is again, and it is beautiful. For
This
anyone
is
not
a
watching us, describe it to us for anyone who's not looking at the video.
it's a 1971 Les Paul, and it's really been my main guitar and from the late 70s until about 1985 when I moved to Los Angeles. And it's got P90 soap bar pickups in it,
Ooh,
which
soap bar. That's a new
yeah, well
one.
they look
That's a
like
new
bars
one.
of soap.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
and the bridge pickup is just beautiful and fat. I think it's a Seymour Duncan
Hmm.
P90, and but the neck pickup was always just a little bit dark, so I made a pickup, DIY made a pickup, and it's called an A90, and it's got Alnico magnets instead of screws, and it's kind of like a big Jazz Master pickup. It's just
Okay.
a really big fat single coil pickup, and it works beautifully in the neck of the Les Paul, and it's bright, it's articulate, and it's
A
just a
bright, articulate
monster.
guitar.
It's a monster of a guitar. It's
Uh,
it's heavy, it's classic Les Paul, it's just deep and
and
it's one rock and rollin'
uh,
guitar.
is it loud? Is it loud? I need
Yes,
you to
it's
show me if
very,
it's
very
loud.
loud.
I need you to go to 11.
And that's the neck pickup. And the bridge pickup, it's it's just a monster.
I
And
love
that's
that.
where it turned way down. So
You told me you just played this guitar at Jazz Fest, correct?
I did with the Continental Drifters,
Okay. Wow.
which is has been my band since 1993, and it's still extant. And if you go on Spotify, you can. There's our Jazz Fest. There's our Jazz Fest 2023 set is on Spotify.
Really?
I just found out today.
Who told you that?
There's
Who
a
told you
thing
your
called
own
Jazz.
music is on?
There's a thing called Jazz Fest Live, and it's Monk Music, Munch. But if you just look up Continental Drifters on Spotify, there's one of the first thing that comes up is Jazz Fest 2023 live set.
I can't wait to listen to it and check it out. Once
Mm-hmm.
again, we're gonna have a measured attitude towards Spotify. We wish that you guys were gonna get paid more for that being on there. I, I
In
love you, but I
fact,
don't love you. I wish you could give them more money for it being there, but I'm glad it's there. Is that a complicated relationship, I guess?
that's
And
it's fraught. But actually, Continental Drifters is an LA story because it
yeah,
was
that's true.
formed in Los Angeles.
That's true.
That band. It was our old drummer Carlo Nucio, who unfortunately passed away about a year ago, and Peter Holsapple from the DBs. He also toured with REM for a long time and worked on arranging a lot of their stuff. And Susan Cowsill from the venerable Cowsills, the very first American pop family band.
Yeah.
And Vicky Peterson from the Bangles, and
Very
Mark
LA.
Walton. Yes,
Yep.
Mark Walton from the Dream Syndicate, very LA.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I remember seeing the Bangs at the Whiskey A Go Go in 1980, and going up to the guitarist who was Vicky Peterson, and saying, "You're an amazing guitarist. I love what you're doing. And she just looked at me and went, and ran away. And it was like, damn. But, and then I ended up being bookends with her on stage for 20, 30 years now.
I love it. This is a
Yeah.
perfect segue. We're going to talk a little bit more about Les Paul under
Okay.
the realm of lipstick pickups. But I want to dig into our trip to LA by starting to tell our listeners that, what was it, 2 weeks ago, a little over a week ago, you sent me a text and you said that you were chatting with Vicky and her husband, John Cowsill, who was also in the Cowsills.
Well, he is a
I
cowsill.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, he's a
Yeah.
Cowsill.
Right.
So you told me that you sent me a text and you said, Vicky, you said, John says that if we're interested in lipstick pickups, we should go watch that thing you do.
Oh, right. Right.
And I was like all about it because I'm a huge fan of the movie and you'd never seen it.
I
And
had never seen it.
I'm going to give a little explanation to anyone because of all ages to understand why. That Thing You Do came out in 1996 and it was written, I know at least produced by Tom Hanks. It was a passion project for him. And at the time, I was, not only interested in music just like I am now, but I was living in Atlanta at the time. There were a lot of message boards. I had a lot of friends who were into power pop. And the people who were power pop astute to contemporary power pop were all about that movie because of the quality of the people associated with them. And one of them is the guy from Fountains of Wayne, Adam Schlesinger, rest in peace. He passed during the pandemic. He wrote
Okay.
the song "That Thing You Do,"
Oh,
and
okay.
and
Which
Mike
is
Viola.
fantastic.
It's a fabulous song, and Mike Viola, I believe, performs on that track too. And I had to sort of explain to you because we have that magic difference between our ages. You're explaining things to me, and I'm explaining things to you. And I had to explain to you that the movie is considered a very fun and credible movie, and you said, well, I'm going to watch it, and I said, well, I'm going to rewatch it because what you said, the reason why it came up is that John wanted you to know that if you're interested in lipstick pickups, you should go watch the movie.
Right.
So you in Memphis, and you and Candace in Memphis, and Kevin, me here in Nashville, we watched it and we learned it's a fictional account of some guys in Erie, Pennsylvania, trying to strike it big in the rock and roll world. And they were playing affordable, entry level instruments made by Silvertone and Dan Letro.
Right.
And that's what John wanted you to know. He's like, hey, if you guys are interested in this, go check out this movie. And there they are on the stage. They're in the uniform. They're trying to strike it big. They've got a girlfriend that's a cheerleader. They got somebody who wants to manage them. They bought their instruments probably in a department store or an appliance store. And there they are playing these humble but unique instruments. And what happens when they hit the big time? There's no more. They switch to higher end instruments, and you start seeing. I can't remember what it was, but it was like fencing. It was like Fender and Gibson, and I
Right.
said,
Right.
"Wow!" And those instruments, beautiful. The movie's gorgeous. I mean, didn't you think style wise, it was
I
just
loved it. I loved
it's
it. And I
beautiful?
loved that they started out with Silvertone
Yeah,
and Dan Electro. He had a Dan Electro bass and a Silvertone guitar, all lipstick pickups.
yeah,
And they sounded great. That beautiful, beautiful jangle.
yeah.
I mean, that just power pop jangle, jangle, jangle.
The sound of young kids trying to hit it big in rock and roll in the 1960s. And the
Yeah.
reality is, for a lot of modest Americans, that meant that they were playing guitars made out of masonite because they couldn't afford a Les Paul like Robert Machet. But you see what I mean? I mean, you look at what Fenders or things involving hardwood, great guitars in their own right, but they sound different. And those were modest guitars. And you and I, it was quite a spectacle for the eyes. But the technical consultation was pretty astute on there because they start out with Masonite guitars, but they end
Right.
up with
With Fenders.
Fenders, and I was like, "Did you know it?" And we noticed it together, and so we were like, "Thank you, John Cowsell." Which, yeah, I mean, I guess he and Vicky live in L.A. mostly and have for a long time. And they're California
Yeah.
people. Yeah, they're California
Yeah.
people. So that was well, if we're going to do an LA episode and talk about how much we love LA, we're going to have to drop some names because when you're in LA, that's what you do. There's two places you got to do it.
Oh, right.
Nashville and LA.
Right.
And Mr. Cowsill told us to go check out that thing you do, and we watched it, and it was great. Listeners, go back and check it out. Now, I went to remind myself that song was a hit in itself, and it charted. You probably don't remember that because I mean, I don't pay attention to charts either because I'm too busy listening to my own stuff. But it's not that it doesn't mean anything. But that song actually charted. That thing you do,
Wow.
and
Very cool.
It's a wonderful song.
It really is. It's a perfect piece of pop.
So we're going to go back to Les Paul's in L.A. because I got a great story to tell you.
Okay.
And I actually told you this months ago when we first became friends. In late 2022, when my obsession with Masonite and lipstick pickups was reaching a fever pitch, and I wanted to buy something, and I decided there's a million things that you could buy in the Dan Electro-verse universe, right? You've got old ones, new ones, reproductions, vintage ones, modified ones, all kinds of things. And my original, exactly, that's a newer one.
It's a newer one, and it has a buzz bridge on it
Buzz
that turns it
bridge.
into an electric sitar.
Exactly.
So,
I wanted to buy one because, in addition to my passion for this instrument, I also think they're undervalued. This is just a business person's opinion, you know. And so I decided to buy one. And Jerry Jones, of course, the luthier, who is not building guitars anymore, but still lives in Nashville. He's from my hometown of Jackson, Mississippi. He made some very high quality Dan Electro-esque reproductions here in Nashville for many years. And his crowning jewel was his master sitar sitting over there. I'm not going to go grab it. But I decided to buy one of those because Jerry Jones is from my hometown. People who play the instrument professionally these days are fans of this Jerry Jones one. Not that it sounds better than the vintage one, but it's a little more, it's second generation. It's a little better built. He made some improvements. He made it a little
it's
more.
definitely improved.
Yeah, the first one was great. They're all great, but he was like, okay, we're going to do this, and every second generation of anything should be an improvement, and that's what happened when Jerry Jones started making that master sitar. So I decided, okay, a Jerry Jones master sitar is number one less expensive than the vintage Coral, but I like the story that he's from my hometown of Jackson, and he's making this thing out of Masonite, which is from Laurel, Mississippi originally. So I bought a Jerry Jones.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Masonite is from Laurel, Mississippi?
Yes.
I had no idea.
We're going to get into all that eventually.
Okay.
We're going to teach everybody. That's why this is bigger than a book. This is going to be a podcast because we got so much to talk about.
I have so much to learn about.
Well, I think it's great adult continuing education. We'll see if some people agree with us.
Totally.
So in late
Oh
2022,
wait, we're in LA. Totes, dude.
To-
Totes.
for real.
Okay.
Totally.
Totes. Okay.
Is this where the word? I know that a lot of the session people around here call a recording session a sesh.
Oh, well, please.
Maybe they got that from LA. I don't know.
Just
But
gag me with a spoon.
gag me with a spoon. So I decided to buy the Jerry Jones, and they were made here in Nashville. I was like, okay, he's from my hometown. I live in Nashville. This is a great thing. And like everybody who makes any investment, we talked about that recently about you buy a type of car and that's all you see. So I was online doing a little confirmation bias is what you like to do is to look and see. You're like, I want to see people who made my decision. It makes me look smart. And I'm Googling to see who all owns an electric sitar, a Jerry Jones electric sitar. And what do I find but a cached old post by the guitarist Brian Ray, who plays with a little fellow named Paul McCartney.
We're name dropping today.
We're dropping so much. We're dropping beats and names, okay? Brian Ray has played with Paul McCartney for nearly 20 years, and one reason why he is a valuable member of Paul McCartney's band is he's a multi-instrumentalist. He can play this and that, and I believe keyboards. And so, just like Paul, you know, you can switch off and do this and do that. And I found an old tweet and an Instagram post of Brian Ray. Oh, no. For our listeners, I'm holding up a picture, which is an Instagram, a printed copy of an Instagram post, and it is from 2013. And he's on tour with Paul McCartney, and he's in Memphis, and he tweets and posts this picture of he tweets about how much he loves Stax and soul and R&B and Motown. And somebody tweets him back and says, "Hey Brian, what was that guitar that you were playing the other day? Listen to What the Man Says," which is a regular occurrence in Paul McCartney's reliable live set. And he says, "That's a Jerry Jones electric sitar, my friend." And of course, most of the people on the Twitter feed, back when Twitter was a relevant forum, nobody knew what it was. He's like, "This is a Jerry Jones electric sitar." He plays it routinely with Paul McCartney. He not only plays it on Listen to What the Man Says, but Paul McCartney has got a fairly new track that he used it, and it's Brian playing it.
Really?
So I want to play you. Yeah, it's hot. Okay, it's called "Come On to Me" of all things, and it's scorching. I mean, I think it's on Paul McCartney's record "Egypt Station," and you know I probably listened to it at the time, but it's there, and I'm going to play it. I've got my little speaker. We can't mix it in. We can't do any of that stuff, but I'm going to play it. It's going to be a little bit like a ghetto listening party, but I'm going to play it for you. And I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's a 3.5-minute song, but I'm going to play it, and I hope you can hear the electric sitar because it just rocks. Listen to this. Sorry. I got to turn on my speaker real quick.
Yeah, crank it.
Crank it. A friend of mine said, "Stop holding your phone up to the mic. Put it on a Bluetooth. I know it has to be crappy, but it doesn't have to be that crappy." So here we go. But I hope everybody will go to Spotify and listen to this because it smokes. And the whole record's great. Listen to this. He plays it a bunch. It's on the intro, it's on the outro, and it's really great. And he really knows his stuff on this electric sitar.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to play one more thing, and then we're going to talk about him and what you and he have in common. Let me go, because it's not just Paul McCartney stuff. Brian Ray has recorded with it. Brian Ray's own music. He's got his own solo music. He's got a band called the Bayonets, which I think is the greatest band name ever. Except I would love it if it was like the Rayonets, like Brian Ray. It's very California. It's very hard driving and power pop. And he also did a cover of Tears of a Clown with his friend Smokey Robinson.
Whoa,
Listen,
seriously.
and he added something to it. He knows all about it. He knows all about this ecosystem. And he did this. I don't know what year he did this, but listen to this. And they're both singing on it. In the beginning, Brian's singing, but listen to what he's using here. Can you read over there over the microphone
Oh,
the electric sitar?
yeah, I can totally hear that sitar cutting through.
He's used it on a bunch of stuff, and you'll love this. He's a Les Paul guy. He
I like this guy already.
he's kind of like he's known for a signature guitar. I mean, it's sort of his baby, but he knows how to get the other sounds. And he's such a Les Paul guy that he lives in L.A. in Santa Monica, but he also has a home in Palm Springs, and he's got a pool shaped like a Les Paul, and it's called the Les Pool.
Okay, you just got me.
Anyway, so I find this on Instagram, and I found it on Twitter, and I commented expecting nothing. He's got tens of thousands of followers. He's a rock star. Okay, I commented, "Thank you for this confirmation that I made a good decision. I just bought a Jerry Jones electric sitar, and nothing could make me more. I said nothing could make me more excited to find it here." And he writes back, not writes back, but he comments back, and he says, "Congratulations, that's awesome." I mean, the guy's totally cool, and he goes, "I like to drive them until they almost feedback." What does that mean? I don't know.
You just drive it really hard into an amp.
What does that mean? The loudness or the way you're playing it, or
It's you put it maybe through a fuzz pedal or a distortion pedal or something like that, and you put it through an amp, and it's just so saturated.
yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, at the
Electric
time, this is a
guitars.
year ago. I'm like, "Thanks, man," and I have no idea what that means. But he's an enthusiastic owner and user of a Jerry Jones electric sitar, and he's used it in a bunch of
Beautiful.
places. And and the reason why I want to talk about this is this guy has a long history, and he's super LA. He was born and raised in LA, and so he's worked for some big league people, and one of them is Etta James.
Oh my God. Beautiful.
That
Who's got,
is,
wait a minute, which one of those two has more hair?
I mean, is this a beautiful?
That is
So
a
I
gorgeous
did
photo.
not. Of course, I know who Etta James is, but until I found out who Brian Ray was, I didn't understand how long he worked with her and for her, and he was a very tender age. I think that they got introduced to each other at the Troubadour, and it was a chance meeting. And James goes on to a 14-year career as Etta James musical director and guitarist.
14 years with Etta James. He's got to have a lot of amazing stories.
after I found this.
I just want to meet this guy and ask him about
Look
that.
at, and he's a Les Paul guy. Look at the
Yeah.
thing is, he's a total golden boy, and that's why I love his golden top. Or they call it
Mm-hmm.
gold top. That Les Paul.
Mm-hmm.
He's a golden boy, and he still looks just like this. By the way,
And his hair
apparently he's a
matches the
vampire.
guitar.
Huh?
His hair matches the guitar.
It's beautiful, and there's Etta James, and I want anybody to know that there's a lot of footage of them touring together. Some of it at the Montreux Jazz Festival, and it is transcendent to watch.
Oh, I've got to check that out.
It's Etta James and a little white blonde kid. And you can tell that they just adore each other. And he worked for her for a long time, and he's done a bunch of different stuff. And fascinating. You know, we exchanged a couple of comments back and forth. And are we friends? No, but I kind of met him on the internet, and he's a delight, and he knows his shit. And he's also on tour with Paul McCartney right now. And I don't know if he has this electric guitar with him, but I know that they're playing "Come On to Me." I think that they're playing "Come On to Me."
Well,
You can,
if they're doing listen to what the man says, he's got his sitar there.
if anybody's interested or intrigued by this conversation, go to YouTube right now and put in Paul McCartney, listen to what the man says live. And I think it's on Fallon. You know, it's on one of the late night shows. It's beautiful. It smokes. It rocks. There's a bunch of stuff out there of him playing it, but I wanted our listeners to know that. But he's a Les Paul guy and a real fascinating guy. I want to talk about a little more L.A. stuff, L.A. centric, and we'll get away from the Les Paul stuff. And we've talked about this before. There is not a band that could be more L.A. than the band Redbone. You know the band Redbone.
Sure. Come and
And
get your love.
I mean, I'm going to play a second because I hope we're going to have 15-year-olds listening to this and 65-year-olds listening to this. And thanks to advertising, everybody knows this song.
And Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, it's on the amazing soundtrack. Listen to this. You got to be patient because it takes a second.
What a great song.
It's a song everybody loves, and a lot of people don't know what electric guitar is, and I'm like, you do. You do. You love it. You just don't know you love it. But what a lot of people should know is that Redbone, I've gone to see any of the live performances where they perform live, and you don't see the electric guitar there. They're
No.
usually playing conventional Strats or Tellys, and I think it's the same reason why you don't see it plays live with a lot of people, from Steely Dan to everyone else. It was a studio trick, and it
Right.
resided in that studio. And they put it not just on that song, they put it all over that record and another record. And they were a very LA band. I think they had some Hispanic members, and then the brothers were Native American. A real fascinating, a very fascinating multicultural band, and they were looking to capitalize on it. And I think you and I discussed that. They were trying to get a little bit of that New Orleans feel too, because Redbone is actually a Cajun term that describes a Native American or something. They were trying to, but they have a lot of tracks on that record. Like they have this one called Fado. Listen to this.
Oh,
It's so wacky. I love it. Fado, what does that mean? You lived in New
a-
Orleans.
a fado dough Okay,
Okay.
fado is it's actually a fado dough, and a
Okay.
fado dough is just a throwdown. It's a hootenanny. It's a it's getting together at the shack on a weekend night and just throwing it down. That's a fado dough.
Yeah, and it's a very New Orleans thing, and they
No, it's
haven't.
not New
Oh,
Orleans.
it's
It's
not.
Cajun country.
Oh,
People often mistake Cajun and New Orleans. New Orleans is
I'm
is
one
is
of
the
them because I
city,
don't know. Yeah.
and Cajun is the country.
Gotcha.
Cajun, Zydeco, that's the country.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's like blues and R&B, blues and country. They didn't come from the city. Like from Mississippi born.
Yeah, yeah.
Like blues music came from the country.
Yeah,
Country music came from the country.
I got it.
And
Just like
Zydeco music and Cajun music came from the country.
gotcha.
Funk, funk and rock and roll came from New Orleans
And jazz.
and jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. I get that.
So
I
so a
appreciate the
fa- so
clarification.
so for a fado or a fado dough, you go out to the country
Gotcha.
and you just throw down. You go out to the shack and you throw down.
Where did you get that Cajun accent you're using right now?
I lived in New Orleans for 12 years. I used to visit with all our friends in Lafayette, way out in the country.
I've spent time in New Orleans, but I don't know much about the other areas of Louisiana. Perhaps I will learn one day.
We'll have to go to Louisiana
I
on
want I
one of
want to
these
go come
meetings.
see one of those legendary performances of the Continental Drifters in New Orleans. I got to see this. I have lots of reasons to go to New Orleans, and that would be an excellent one. New Orleans is a
Hmm.
magical city, and I also love to eat the food a lot.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's go back to L.A.
Okay, so we're going back to LA. I got a couple more things because we're at 42 minutes, and we always promise
Uh-oh.
people we're not going to take too much of their time. And I've got a really ultimate LA. There's so much California in the lipstick arena. And I'm going to say again with the electric sitar, you bring it up to people and they go, "Oh, yeah, I know that." Oh, yeah. And I go, "Oh, yeah, it's all over." And they always say, it's on, the same two or three songs, but it's on hundreds of songs as I've done the diligence. And there's
Hmm.
some that are right there underneath your nose, and they are a critical part of the vibe. And I've got a really good California one that we're going to play right now. Watch this or listen.
Educate me. God, I love that song.
I mean, it's such a classic. It is Dave Stewart playing the
Right.
electric sitar. When Petty was still alive and he would play it live occasionally, I found things where Mike Campbell is playing that part on a vintage choral, which I believe was
Hmm.
owned by Tom Petty. And
Hmm.
I love it being there, and I'll tell you why. That record was huge for me. It came out when I was in college, and I loved it. I think I flunked out my sophomore year because I was sitting there listening to that record instead of going to take an exam. If I got the timing right, I can't remember what year that record came out. But I read that that song in particular, Don't Come Around Here No More, apparently when they went into the studio that day, they were like, we want to do something special with this song. We want this to be different. And
And that was in L.A.
it was in LA. I guess so. I assume it was in LA. I don't know. I'm a huge Tom Petty fan, but I'm not the person who knows where every record was recorded because
Hmm.
that's a whole nother level of expertise. But when they went in, they were under direction. I guess Dave Stewart, maybe he was the producer. I don't know. They want to do something different. I'm going to say that they achieved it because
They nailed it.
it's amazing. And I've seen videos of Petty performing that, and the crowd is just going nuts. And he's got this huge band, and they're all on board. But Mike Campbell, they shoot the the spotlight over on them, and
It's the glue to the
it's
entire
the vibe.
song.
It's the
It's
vibe.
it's the vibe, it's the riff, it's the glue. It makes that song happen. You
It's what
couldn't
made it
you're not going to do
psychedelic.
that. You're not going to do that on a mandolin.
No.
You're not going to do it on a piano. You're not going it's the electric sitar that makes that happen.
And the
It's
video was in concert with the psychedelic nature of it. And of course, Petty knows all about Jangle with all of his Rickenbackers and everything else, but he knew
and
exactly
he's got a lot of lipstick pickups in his arsenal too.
big time.
In
Big
the
time.
woodshed.
Yes. Okay, we're going to talk about a couple more tracks that are ultimate LA. And this is right underneath your nose. And I discovered this early on in my electric sitar hunt. And I've been telling people this for the last 3 years, what I'm about to tell you. And they always dismiss it. And I go, okay, I'm not a guitar player or musician. You don't have to take my word for it, but I have learned that Eddie Van Halen used a choral electric sitar on the first Van Halen record. And people are like, what? How dare you know that? And be a woman and not a guitar player. Because, it's like... And I tell them, I'm very sorry to tell you, but I did my work and I did my research. And Andy Van Halen and his producer, I can't remember his name now, they used a borrowed electric sitar on loan from, was it studio recording? It was
SIR?
SIR.
SIR. I know them well. Yeah.
Still in business. They lend the
Totally.
instruments out. Somebody went over there, and I think that's the story, and they borrowed it. But it's on Ain't Talking About Love. We're going to listen to it.
You got to get to the solo part.
Yeah, I need to. Hang on. We're almost there. Wait for it. Here it comes. I mean, he's a very distinctive guitar player, but then he put those overdubs on there. And I found an interview with him in, some old vintage guitar journal where he talks about what he did. He was a wizard. He was not only a unique guitar player, but he also knew how to get a lot of unique effects. Do this and do that. And it's him describing how he used the electric sitar on that overdubs. And he's full disclosure. He's like, hey, guys, this is what I did.
Oh yeah. You know what?
He used it.
I listened to it on earphones, on headphones, and it's fascinating. It's like the main guitar is on the left side, and it's just like him. It's the whole band in a studio playing live. It's fantastic. That's how they recorded. It's how they got that excitement.
And it's Asian. It has an Asian feel. Like, and you would probably get that as somebody who's lived in Asia. Like, you listen to that part in it, and it's like, it sounds like the rising sun or something. It's very exotic and modal and interesting. And Eddie Van Halen was a genius.
Right. So let me finish.
Okay.
So the left side is his regular guitar, and then when the solo comes in, there's this extra guitar on the right side, and it's the sitar, and it's just totally makes it happen. It is so friggin' cool.
Secret sauce, man.
Yeah.
It's just like if you know how to cook, you taste it, and you're like, oh, it's that nutmeg. just the right amount of salt, just the right amount of
Mm-hmm.
acid. You know, it's kind of the same
Mm-hmm.
thing, not to make too much of cooking, but
Mm-hmm.
he really did something. Apparently, it was the producer's idea, but Eddie Van Halen, he didn't need too much instruction because he was a very unique guitar player, and the whole band was great. But that's really about it. We're right there. We just passed the 50-minute mark. Did you learn a lot about LA?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you taught me about LA. We learned about LA together, and it's cold and rainy here, and it makes me want to be there. But we went there mentally with our ears, and it's almost as good, right?
Oh,
On a
it's
cold,
so good.
on a cold gray day, put on something sunny and shiny
Mm-hmm.
like the
Mm-hmm.
mamas and the
Mm-hmm.
papas.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Mm-hmm.
the mamas and the papas have some electric guitar stuff too. We're going to talk about that one day. We're going to
Yeah,
go
you're
back to
right.
California. We're going to go to Detroit. We're going to go to Memphis. We're going to go back and forth to LA and New York. And today we're done with our trip. And I can't thank you enough for putting a little California sunshine in my day.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers to you. I'm drinking some Moroccan mint tea.
Cheers, darling. I'm drinking bourbon.
So we're going to sign off today. Once again, I'm Emily Walters with the Lipstick Pickup, and I'm here with my cohort in Memphis, Mr. Robert Mache. Memphis-based guitarist Robert Mache, one-time citizen of Los Angeles, who was a huge help to me today, and I appreciate it.
All-time New Yorker.
Oh, yes.
All-time New Orleanian.
And you're going to help me learn about all these places. I've been
Mm-hmm.
there, but doesn't mean I
Mm-hmm.
know anything.
Let's go down to New Orleans.
All right, we're signing off. Thank you, Robert.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Bye. Leaving the
See
chat
y'all.
room. Leave studio.
Okay.